What's going on, everybody? Welcome to a special. Well, I guess this would be overlooked news since it's me and Andrew again. But today we have a special guest. We're going to be talking to Lee Camp from the Most Censored, formerly of Redacted Tonight. So we're going to go ahead and bring him on.
Hey,
Lee,
How's it going, Lee?
thanks for having me.
how's it going? You want to let everybody know what's how's it been going since you last been on? I know you started a new show and.
Yeah, it's going good in certain respects. I mean, obviously, we for those who don't know, I guess that we shouldn't assume everyone saw the last show. My TV show of 8 years, Redacted Tonight, was canceled along with all of RT America, shuttered in the span of like a day. Within a few days after that, the YouTube channel, which was my main YouTube channel, 250,000 subscribers, was banned globally. Over 1,000 videos banned globally. My podcast, Moment of Clarity, deleted from Spotify. So that all happened within a span of a few days, and
That still hurts. That still hurts to hear.
I worked on creating some new things. So now the two things basically are my locals page, which is kind of like Patreon but more of a community, and that's at leecamp.net. And then the latest thing is just started a show with Mint Press called The Most Censored News that comes out twice a week. And that's been going for a few weeks now. And much like Redacted, it's written, produced, and hosted by me, and researched and everything. So people are getting completely my thoughts on everything as opposed to like some team of writers or some sponsors or anything like that. So.
It's been really good so far. I've enjoyed every. I've watched every episode, and yeah, I do miss Redacted, but I will say that like the more it feels a little bit more close and more like direct, like it is coming straight from you. Like I like that a lot, and you had me rolling on some stuff.
It's weird that like simply being in a news studio and wearing a blazer, even though it's not like I was dressed real nice, but simply being in a news studio and wearing a blazer, everything has a different feel. You feel like there's a distance between the person and you that, I tried to undermine that distance by interacting and being free and ad-libbing and having a studio audience until the pandemic started and all that stuff. But yeah, you can't, in certain ways, that feeling of like this show's in a news studio doesn't go away.
Yeah, I imagine it's sort of, you kind of just revert back to what you're used to and everything and such. So, yeah. So, what's up? Sorry, go ahead, Z.
I was gonna ask you, did you want to ask anything real fast?
Yeah. So, yeah, no, I mean, I think in terms of that, like so you've been doing kind of your own show for the past month, right? Or so. It's been past month now.
Yeah, like I think 7 or 8 episodes have come out, and it's 2 a week. So
yeah. So when it comes to, have you been impressed with how much traction you've been able to gauge in a certain amount of time? You feel back at home, kind of doing it.
I mean, there's certain things in terms of the traction that are going great. People seem excited about it. I haven't gotten any fans that aren't excited about it. It all seems to be going well in that regard. I also see that like there's certain kind of independent outlets that are picking up some of the segments and putting them out. So yeah, that's all very cool. Working with Mint Press is amazing. Mint Press does great stuff. I mean, for anyone not familiar with them, they should totally check it out. One of the best independent online news sources out there. And then there's the side of it that I've always been. It was infuriating while I was at Redacted, and it's infuriating now, which is all the incredibly strong suppression against. It used to be stuff at Redacted Tonight, but it's both the topics and the outlet. So yes, I'm no longer at RT America, but Mint Press is also heavily suppressed for just, they basically cover what's going on in Palestine from the Palestinian angle, which is the angle you don't get in the United States. And, rightfully call Israel an apartheid state and rightfully talk about the harm and aggression that's done in Palestine. And for that, Mint Press has been heavily suppressed. Their GoFundMe campaigns for funding for their outlet have been canceled without reason. I think maybe Indiegogo did the same. PayPal recently banned them from taking in funds, even though this is just a straight up independent, awesome news outlet. So yeah, there's that kind of suppression, which, I don't know that I wouldn't get. I think I'd probably get that everywhere. So
freedom.
Yeah.
Speaking of suppression, actually want to get your thoughts on this. Let's see. Last night, I think this. I'm not a fan of Joe Rogan, so I don't watch him, or I don't really watch him, but I do see the clips that pop up. And last night, Mark Zuckerberg. There's a clip of him and Mark Zuckerberg that came out, and it was about the Hunter Biden laptop story. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on this real fast, because he's talking about the fact that Facebook algorithmically censored it.
How do you guys handle things when they're a big news item that's controversial? Like, there was a lot of attention on Twitter during the election because of the Hunter Biden laptop story. The New York
we
Post.
have that too.
Yeah, so you guys censored that as well?
So we took a different path than Twitter. Basically the background here is the FBI, I think, basically came to us, some folks on our team, and was like, hey, just so you know, like, you should be on high alert. We thought that there was a lot of Russian propaganda in the 2016 election. We have it on notice that basically there's about to be some kind of dump of that's similar to that. So just be vigilant. So our protocol is different from Twitter's. What Twitter did is they said you can't share this at all. We didn't do that. What we do is we have, if something is reported to us as potentially misinformation, important misinformation, we also have this third-party fact-checking program, because we don't want to be deciding what's true and false. And for I think it was 5 or 7 days when it was basically being determined whether it was false, the distribution on Facebook was decreased, but people were still allowed to share it. So you could still share it, you could still consume it.
So when you say the distribution is decreased,
it got shared.
How does that work?
It basically, the ranking in newsfeed was a little bit less. So fewer people saw it than would have otherwise. So it definitely.
By what percentage?
I don't know off the top of my head, but it's meaningful. But basically, a lot of people were still able to share it. We got a lot of complaints that was the case. Obviously this is a hyper political issue. So depending on what side of the political spectrum, you either think we didn't censor it enough or censored it way too much. But we weren't sort of as black and white about it as Twitter. We just kind of thought, hey, look, if the FBI, which I still view as a legitimate institution in this country, it's like very professional law enforcement, if they come to us and tell us that we need to be on guard about something, then I want to take that seriously.
Did they specifically say you need to be on guard about that story?
No, I don't remember if it was that specifically, but it was.
Okay, but first, before I get your thoughts on that, I like how he's acting that like they don't just work with the FBI and the CIA and things like that. Like, he's not like they don't already like they just give him a call like, hey, Mark, you might want to watch out. Like,
there is so much wrong with that fucking 1 minute. It drives me nuts. It's like so hilarious. I mean, let's go through some of it. I don't even know if we have time to go through everything that's either wrong, misleading, or intentional propaganda. Okay, first of all, he starts out by saying, let's remember the FBI came to us. And, we respect the FBI. Like you said, of course they work with the FBI. The FBI could tell them to do anything, and they do it because they don't want to get broken up by our government. They're worried that Congress or something will break up Facebook into multiple companies. And so they bend over backwards to do anything our government wants. And the idea that FBI is, they're such professional law enforcement. These are the fucks that, like, there is studies showing that 5%, I think it might be more than that, of every time they arrest someone in the United States for an impending terrorist attack, they were involved in it somehow. They were a part of it. They helped push the person. In some instances, there's even examples where they drove the guy because he like ended up not having his van or whatever. So they like drove him to the terrorist attack that they then arrest him before it happens, so that they can go, we stop terrorism. Oh, more money for Homeland Security. Like that. These are the criminal clowns of the empire. And he's like, well, the FBI is very professional, and they came to us. Okay, that's step one. That's something you got to understand as just like a basic.
Them being arm in arm already. Him just acting like they're just too, like they don't, like there's not been a campaign for like the last year of like the military and everything, you know, just the government flooding into social media, sending bots and sending like even just people. Yeah, so it's
actually Mint Press and Alan McLeod have done some of the best coverage of that. How Facebook, Google, Twitter, they've all, you're right, influx of FBI, former CIA joining those organizations. So beyond that, he goes, the FBI came to us and they said, listen, there was a lot of Russian propaganda in the last election. No, there fucking wasn't. Russiagate has collapsed. Every tenet, I hate Trump as much as the next guy, but every tenet of Russiagate has come out to be garbage. And in fact, Facebook's own, they tried to backtrack on this when they realized people were talking about it. Facebook's own ad executive, because you remember when Russiagate was first starting, they said, oh, it was Facebook ads. Russia paid to have these ads that influenced the election. In those first few days when that was a news story, Facebook's top advertising, whatever executive, whatever he's called, put out a statement saying, the troll farm that everyone's talking about, the clickbait farm, paid, the entirety of what they paid over the election over the past year was like $10,000, which is nothing on Facebook ads. That's, that's really no reach. Half of that, they said, over half of it was after the election. So that was really important in swaying the election. Of the stuff that was seen before the election, you can go look at the images. It's like one's Bernie Sanders in a banana hammock, like a bathing suit. It did not influence anything. And even the Mueller investigation, remember they indicted 14 people from this clickbait farm in St. Petersburg, Russia. They quietly had to drop all of those indictments because they didn't have any evidence that these people did anything to rig the elections. So again, he's putting that forward as fact. It is completely false. Then he goes, there's a lot of misinformation on Facebook. Yeah, you mean like everything our government ever says that Facebook just puts forward and never questions everything that our government says that's parroted by the mainstream media? Facebook created a list of their top news outlets, and Fox News was on there. Like, these are the biggest clowns you could imagine, and Facebook lists them as the legitimate news sources because they know where their bread is buttered. They're not going to go up against the American empire right now. So as long as your misinformation agrees with the American government, then sure, go ahead.
Then he said he put them in the algorithm.
What's that?
He said they use an algorithm to do it instead of like they didn't program the algorithm.
Yeah, they programmed the algorithm.
And again, not the biggest Joe Rogan fan, but to Joe Rogan's credit, he asked a good follow-up question. He's like, by how much? And then Zuckerberg's like, well, I don't know, but a considerable amount. And it's like, okay, that's comforting.
Yeah. Here's what actually happened is, now I can't prove they knew the Hunter Biden laptop story was true or false. They may have very well thought it was false. Most of us thought it was false. In that week before the election, there was no strong evidence that it was absolutely true. Seemed like it very well could be true. But anyway, when he says, the diminished by a bit in the news feed, they didn't show it to fucking anyone. That yes, when he says if you wanted to share it, you still could, but that would mean you had to go find it at the source page, which is not how anything spreads organically. And when you shared it, yes, it would say you shared it, but no one else would see it. So that is what they did to that post, to the post about Hunter Biden's laptop. Now you can argue, oh, well, that's fine because I think that's a good thing. Fine, have that debate. But when he says we slightly minimized the news. No, they didn't show it to anyone.
Pretty much people are sharing it into the void. Like they can go get it, they can go find it as long as they find it. When they share it, you might get like one like.
which is, I'm heavily familiar with this because my Facebook page, which used to be my strongest platform, has 330,000 followers, but nowadays nothing is shown to anyone. So, if I'm lucky, a post gets 100 shares, which out of 330,000 followers is nothing. They actually show you the percentage of people who saw a post, and I calculated it once, and it was like 0.007% saw my post. And these are people that went to my Facebook page, said they want to follow it, said they'd like to be alerted, click that button to be alerted about my post, and no one's shown this stuff. So, that's how Facebook works. And
shadow ban.
And he's, hemming and hawing and jumping around. Oh, and also when he mentions we have third-party fact checkers because we don't want to decide what's true and false.
Red flag.
Well, there were articles about who that third party is. It's the Atlantic Council, which is a U.S. government think tank. Like, they're the ones telling Facebook what they're allowed to show people. I mean, it's all so aggressively laughable. Oh, and the latest thing that happened to me is I got it's the first one I've gotten in a while, a community guidelines strike 2 days ago, which I think you can only have 2 or 3, and then they might delete my page. And it was because I posted an article of mine, a column, about the truth on the ground in Ukraine and about how the U.S. government has said that, and NBC News covered this. This was not, a hidden story, but they didn't talk about it much, but you can read the NBC News article. The U.S. government has said that they are acting like things are true on the ground in Ukraine, that they have very little, if any, evidence to prove it's true, because they claim they're in an information war. So therefore it's fine that they're lying to all of America. So I did a column about that, and they said it was hate speech because I started it off with a joke where I go, wait a second, we're supposed to root for a Jew, Zelensky, and also for Nazis, the Ukrainian military. And I said, as an anti-imperialist Jew myself, can't I root against the Nazis? Like, and that they called hate speech, probably because it had the word Jew and Nazi in it. But they, not just Facebook, but also TikTok and several others have made it YouTube also made it virtually impossible to criticize Nazis. Because if you use the word Nazi enough in your videos, they'll just like minimize who sees it. Sorry, I'll stop saying it. They'll just minimize who sees it. And so that means we're now in a world where you can't criticize Nazis? Like, yes. This is insanity.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And you say, anyway. The first time you say something like from the left or something like that, automatic ban. But like Nazis get the time of day like the whole time, like on or the right.
Yeah, I mean, the reason they did that is because they have banned all Nazi pages, which, that's understandable. That's legitimate, like, hate speech where you are calling for certain people to be killed. But while they were deleting all those pages, they also deleted anyone's ability to criticize Nazis.
Yeah. And I think just one other thing I've really found fascinating was that for the specific Hunter Biden story, Rogan asked if the FBI actually told him not to suppress that story. And he was like, well, for that, I don't remember if it was them or someone else. And it's just like, how many people are whispering in your ear as to what you can and can't do? Like, you can't even keep track of who's telling you what. Like, it just shows.
Right. There's so many people that direct us what to do on Facebook. Like, I don't even know.
It was like you were saying, though, like the fact that, like, he's just acting as though they're not in constant contact with the government. Like, and he like you said, he can't even remember who told him who told him that. It's just weird. It's just funny seeing him act so coy when you know that he's just he's a bad apple.
I mean, he and his entity, his organization, have done everything they can to exploit people, steal their data, stop them from using any other social media sites, They make it impossible to share anything from other sites like Minds or Rockfin or something. Or you can share it, but they won't show it to anyone. I mean, nowadays, even just posting a YouTube video, they hardly show it to anyone because they don't want you leaving Facebook to go to YouTube. So, and stealing everyone's data. Like apparently it came out not too long ago that even if you click the X on your Facebook page, so you think you've turned it off, but you didn't click log out, it will keep monitoring everything you do on the web. So if you aren't logged out, doesn't matter if the tab is gone, they'll keep spying on all your shit.
Okay, well they have a good number on me then. Damn.
Well, let that be a lesson, everyone. Just Google a lot of things that have nothing to do with your life. Just Google, naked snuffleupagus, and so that they start thinking you're just out of your mind.
Yeah, and I know I don't tell you this, but yeah, and also them just they destabilize countries like that Facebook is known it's been proven that they have destabilized countries and aided in radicalization of like to a lot of far right like organizations around the world. So
yeah.
I wanted to get your take a little bit, and this has been discussed a good amount, I think, on many different other platforms. But, obviously with the FBI raiding Mar-a-Lago, we have a lot of conservatives who are, suddenly turning on the FBI, right? And of course, a lot of them are turning on the FBI because they got their man, right? And such. Do you at all see this as an opportunity for some people like to be educated and learn about the actual history of the FBI and how they've been anti-democratic for all this time? Or do you just see that it'll just continue to be reactionary and we'll just go back to business as usual?
I mean, I think, sure, if it helps some people learn what the FBI is about, then that's fine. I mean, I've tried to. Some people, there's even some people on the left that have basically just come to Trump's defense in terms of, Trump's doing everything right and the FBI is trying to get him, and it's like, yes, the FBI is being used as a weapon, but it's always been used by a weapon by the ruling elite, and so I don't know whether he had classified documents he stole from the government or not. But I believe that it's very clear what you're seeing here, which is a rift in the ruling class. There is a portion of the ruling class that thinks that Trump is fine and he's a great leader and he will keep exploiting all the people the same way he did for his 4 years and can give giant tax cuts to the richest Americans. And, even though he seemed to signal some changes to the military-industrial complex, none of them actually happened. So what's it matter at the end? So there's a portion of the ruling class that's all for that. And then there's a larger portion, I'd say, 70 or 80% that of the ruling class. And this, I'm ignoring the Republican Democrat delineation because they are one and the same in this regard. Now, the 30% that are on Trump's side of this ruling class are probably Republicans, but that's kind of a side point. So the other 70, 80% of the ruling class believes that Trump is a major problem for the U.S. empire, not because he's a racist fascist, not because he's a billionaire who has never cared for 2 seconds about anyone but himself. They think he's a problem, and rightfully so, because he takes the mask off the empire. He is way too straightforward as a CEO of America Inc. in terms of revealing what America's really after. Like when he sat there in press conferences and said we should have stolen the oil in Iraq and we're stealing the oil in Syria. Those type of comments are really problematic to the incredibly rich, incredibly powerful ruling class. And that's what they have an issue with. Not his racism, not his white supremacy, none of that, because this is a white supremacist system at its core. And so really all they're upset about is the way he's doing these things, not what he's doing, because what he did was not much different from what the ruling class has done for generations.
Exactly. I feel that everyone has gotten upset because these white supremacist institutions that have always gone after like the left and socialist movements and worker movements has metastasized and is like now attacking anything that threatens its like hegemony. And like Trump, like you said, is for part of the ruling class, he is a threat because he doesn't do things business as usual. So I feel like a lot of people are upset because they're seeing the FBI go after someone powerful, their favorite white nationalist, opposed to like a week before when we saw like the black socialist group Uhuru get they were raided and not a peep.
Right. And all of the aggressive tactics that have been used against activists of all stripes, environmental activists getting locked up for years. Obviously, Julian Assange, who's not an activist, just a journalist and publisher. And, they've gone after him with everything they can, even discussing plans to assassinate him. All of that seems to be, ignored by so many people. And then they're upset that, that the FBI is used against Trump. But, I will say that they're doing the same thing to Trump that they did more successfully to Bernie Sanders. They found various ways to rig the system, the primary, in order to make sure, and I, spent episode after episode going through all the details of that, but to make sure he could not win. He was a major threat to the capitalist, unfettered capitalist ruling class. And they viewed Trump as a little bit less of a threat because he is clearly a unfettered capitalist, all for it. He's also not anti-military industrial complex because, Obama's final year, 26,000 bombs were dropped by the Pentagon. Trump's first year, 40,000 were dropped by the Pentagon. So both of them are war criminals, but Trump took the gloves off a little more. But, now they are worried, very worried that obviously if Trump runs, he will win. I mean, it's not even, to me, it's not even a question. You have an incredibly weak presidency right now. That is in an heavy economic downturn. On top of that, you have kind of the waning days of the U.S. empire that were going to come about anyway. And so there's no way Biden wins this next election unless, they stop Trump from running. But even then, it'll probably be whoever replaces Trump that wins. And many say that, the irony is you stop Trump from running by coming up with, he stole classified documents, which, by the way, he probably did. I mean, you think he views anything as against his power? Like, no. You think he really, like, leaving with a folder in his arm as they're getting ready to leave the White House on the last day? They're like, Mr. President, you can't take those with you. You think he gives a shit? No, he walks.
I can't see him thinking like. I can't see him being like, well, maybe I shouldn't take these.
Yeah,
like I don't see Trump having those kind of thoughts.
I just saw the rule book. That's against the rules. So he very well may have had classified documents that he shouldn't have at Mar-a-Lago, but they're going to use a way to try and stop him. But what I was going to say is the irony is that you stop Trump from running, you very well could end up with a far more efficient, effective fascist.
DeSantis.
That doesn't mean like DeSantis. That doesn't mean I want either of them. Both of them are garbage.
So do you think that well, since we're saying, let me back that up for a second. We were saying that the fact that the FBI raid could be a potential tool to stop him from running. Now, do you think that it would backfire and him potentially become a martyr because they did that, and it's actually going to shoot him up to clinch the nomination for the Republican Party? Because I mean, I don't like to. I know history is in echoes. But I know that happened with Hitler as well when he was arrested, and what ended up happening is that the Germany, they saw him as a martyr instead of him being a giant criminal for treason. So,
well, I will say this, that I think Trump would or will win either way. So if the FBI didn't raid his place, he would have won also. But it is quite possible that they find a way to stop him from running. I mean, I don't know what they're able to do. I don't know what, the FBI says he had these classified documents that's illegal. And then they probably, I doubt he'll ever see behind bars, but they very well could come up with a reason that he's not allowed to run for president again. And the truth is that could stop him in some ways, in the sense that, we have heard a fuckload less from him since he's been out of power. I mean, so yeah, they may succeed in stopping him.
I was just going to say, I think the most I've heard of him is literally just when people in media just say, oh, let's just talk, see what Trump's saying, the latest thing he's saying. It's like, oh, great. Awesome for you bringing him back into relevancy. Cool.
Yeah, meanwhile, he gets more coverage now than Bernie Sanders got when he was winning the president.
Seriously.
It's so bad. CNN is literally just dedicated to like MSNBC and CNN are just dedicated to Trump or Trump-esque like politics. They don't even like talk about like anything. That's all their substances now. What I was going to say, another thing is you mentioned the fact about this trend also with a lot of people on the left agree, like being like Trump didn't do anything wrong, blah, blah, blah. Now we've seen this a couple of times because Marjorie Taylor Greene had when Assange was getting extradited, she made a tweet about him getting extradited and be like, free Assange, which was a little disappointing to say the least because the squad, nothing about him. And the same thing happened about a week and a half ago. We have her screaming, defund the police. And then you have all these leftists, leftists who were siding with Trump and being like Marjorie Taylor Greene is more left than the squad. And she's a leftist. And the fact that everyone is just Ben Norton brought up the fact that, she ran on the fact that she was shooting socialism and shooting her campaign ad was literally a commercial for her shooting socialism. But I don't want to get your thoughts on that.
And the Nazis, had good public transit. Like, just because someone's right on one issue doesn't mean you should run around waving their flag. These are all awful human beings. Exactly. Almost all of them are sociopaths. And Marjorie Taylor Greene's no exception. So just because you see her say, down with the FBI, that doesn't make her a leftist. It doesn't make her, someone who's heavily critical of the American empire. It doesn't make her a good politician. A good, congressperson. So,
right.
It's just disturbing. I guess it's just disturbing because you see them like retweet that kind of stuff about her. Yes. But then yesterday or 2 days ago, she's calling for any Chinese Americans to be deported from the U.S.
Right.
Pretty much like she's calling for like a new exclusion act for the most part.
Yeah.
And like not even a peep from any of those people. So it's very concerning to me when you see people like they'll talk about that kind of thing, but then when she says something like that, you don't even hear anything.
I think, yeah. Oh,
nope.
Sorry, Lee, go ahead. I don't know. Well,
no, I didn't have anything.
Okay. Well, I was just going to say, I think there is a way to point out and be like, particularly with the squad, right? You're letting Marjorie Taylor Greene talk about Assange. People who are kind of either neutral or not knowledgeable about Assange are now going to think, oh, that's a right-wing issue, right? So that is essentially what is harmful there because you're letting Marjorie Taylor Greene have, more of a say on Assange than what the squad who's supposed to be representing the left do. And then that is then harmful for Assange because then that brings people who could potentially have educated upon it, could be brought into the fold, are now like, oh, I don't know if I want to go there. The worst type of people are like talking about Assange. And so that I think is my concern with that. And I think there's a way to communicate that to be like, hey, squad, don't let Marjorie Taylor Greene take over this issue because you know what she's going to do with it. But I feel like people are not capable, particularly in some of these left spaces, to have that nuanced take. So they just say, oh, Marjorie Taylor Greene, she more left. And it's like, no, that's not. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand some of these people. I think they're I don't know, they're desperate to be liked, or I don't know, to have someone that they're celebrating. I don't know. It's our politicians are a load of garbage, and people have to think outside the two-party system. And that's something I try and keep hitting on, because as long as we're in these two ridiculous parties that are completely meaningless now, if they ever had any meaning, you've got right-wingers and Republicans against the FBI and saying that we should end the wars and we shouldn't be in Ukraine, and you have Democrats saying, oh no, the FBI and the CIA are heroes and we should totally be in Ukraine in a proxy war with the nuclear power. I mean, it's all just insanity, and I think people need to look outside the two-party system for solutions, because it is just so toxic. It's so toxic, and You know, and we're not going to do anything about the environment, anything about the latest numbers are 6 million people have been killed by the U.S. war on terror over the past 20 years. 6 million people, most of them innocent civilians, and that's on the United States, and it's basically never talked about, and instead people just bicker about what AOC said or something. It's pure insanity, and
that's only 1 million more people than I live in South Carolina, and there's our population is 5 million people.
Yeah,
that's only 1 million more people than here. I can't that's.
Yeah, it's pure insanity. I'm sorry I got to wrap this up, guys, but I really do appreciate everything you're doing.
Thank you. And you're welcome back anytime. And before you go, can we ask you one more quick question? I wanted to get your thoughts on the Forward Party and the fact that they don't seem to have any. That's the Forward Party, since we're talking about getting out of the two-party system, and the fact that they seem to be another center-right party with no policies.
Yeah, here's maybe all you need to know about the so-called Forward Party. They have said they don't have policies yet, but they do have $5 or $10 million in the bank. So they have millions of dollars, zero policies. To me, that says a lot. But yeah, I did a video of the Most Censored News on this, and it's not just Andrew Yang, who I won't get into my criticisms of him, which are many, but it's Andrew Yang with two Republicans, Christine Todd Whitman and David Jolly, and these horrible. are horrible human beings, and they claim this party is going to be centrist. Now, what do they mean by centrist? They mean between the Democrat and Republican Party. Well, what are the Democrat and Republican Party? Republican is far right-wing. Democrat is far right-wing in action. Even if you want to go off the Democrats' words, you would say they're a right-wing party. They're slightly less right-wing in their words than the Republican Party. So if you have a right-wing party and an extreme right-wing party, and now you're in the center of that, what does that make you? It makes you a right-wing party.
All right. Well, that's all we want to get from you, Lee. And we love talking to you, and hopefully you'll come back soon.
Yeah, thanks a lot. The show's called The Most Censored News, twice a week, free to watch. It's on YouTube. Just type in Behind the Headlines. And you can also get it at Mint Press News. Just Google Mint Press News. It's on their homepage. You'll find episodes with me on there. And I have my two podcasts, Government Secrets and Common Censored, and hope people will check those out.
All right. Thanks, man. And you have a good day.
Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah. Always fun talking to Lee.
For sure.
Anything else you want to go over, or you think you want to go ahead and wrap it up for today?
I did. I mean, if you want, we could play Marjorie Taylor Greene's audio thing, because it really is.
Let's do it. Let's do it. We'll go over that because it's probably unhinged.
It's to
say the least.
Did you see it? Have you seen it yet?
I don't. The audio from her from her getting pretty much getting swatted the other day, and her being like, "Yeah, I just walk up to my house. I always walk around my house and answer my door with my AR-15." It's like, what the fuck? What? she said she just walks around her house with her AR-15, which is just another level of life.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she's left. That's cool.
Yeah, for sure. Do you want me to pull up her last? Okay. Because this is what I just want to show people what we were referencing when we were talking to Lee Camp in terms of her what she would do.
Exactly, because people are thinking we don't have the like us. We want the FBI abolished. We don't have the same idea. Like people don't understand that when we say abolish the FBI, we're not talking. She's talking about replacing.
So Jack Ma.
Sorry, continue.
She's potentially talking about replacing it with something far worse.
Yes.
She's not talking about abolishing the FBI, and then it's not like Marjorie Taylor Greene saying abolish the FBI. Then she's going to abolish the police. Then she's going to abolish private property. No. They're going to replace the FBI with something even worse.
Yeah, something that is explicitly aligned with their
exactly something that will not go after white supremacists. It will only go after people on disenfranchised people.
Could you imagine if she were the head of the FBI? She would just be like, Anybody that's communist, we're going after. Anybody who's a socialist, anyone who has any affiliate, like that would be day one.
Remember, hate Biden. Biden's not a friend of mine. However, remember when she first got elected, her first thing she was going to do was she put just to for show. She sent in articles of impeachment for Biden.
Yeah.
And just that showed me so much just from like, it's like it's just teams. It has nothing to do. She's just playing teams. Like it has nothing to do with being left or right. She is a fascist. Like it's funny because like, it'd be like libs. Libs call fucking anybody they disagree with a fascist. But it's like, no, she listen to what she is saying. These are legit fascist talking points. Like,
yes.
So go ahead and play it.
Yeah, absolutely. So she's on with Steve Bannon too. So this is
okay.
Yeah. That just tells you enough you need to know about.
He literally has a Nazi. He literally has a school for far right boys and like overseas.
If I was in charge and I had my way, I would come down on China so hard. I would put tariffs back in place and they would be more strict than President Trump's because those tariffs work. I would kick out every single Chinese in this country that is loyal to the CCP.
And
they
also,
would be gone.
if you sign
I do
one,
not care who they are.
If you sign one of those documents that says that you've got to report
back to China. I don't care how much money you have, how much land you own, how many businesses you own, how much money you've donated to colleges and universities. I don't care about who your kid is and how many students you've sent.
So
to
Jack Ma, all these guys, all these people that are part of the
Chinese, loyal to the CCP. They go back. In
30 seconds, you also got Wall Street. Would you immediately make sure
you pause it for 2 seconds?
You could not raise money.
Okay, so like I was saying earlier, she's literally pretty much calling for a second Chinese Exclusion Act.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No matter how much, if they are loyal to the CCP, which I very doubt if they're here making cash like hardcore,
right,
then they're loyal to the Communist Chinese Party, whatever. But the CCP, but I doubt that. But the fact that like she's just like, well, obviously we know American values are not upheld in the first place, but the fact that she is literally just being like everything that America says, it's like I don't care if you have land, if you have money, if you have this, you're going back. It's like just pure blatant racism. So,
and she's blatantly trying to one up Trump. Notice how she was like, "It's going to be better than Trump. Trump did that. Nope, I'm going to do this." Right?
Which makes me think that does she really like Trump, or is she trying to replace him? Because we don't think about her being like running in like something like 2028. Or something like that. Like we're just been focused on DeSantis, but we haven't really. But when you really think about the person who's been like acting like him or worse in the news,
yeah,
it's been her.
Right. I mean, I think to answer your question, I don't think anyone really likes anyone in DC. They look at one another as, can I build off of you? Right.
Exactly.
Can I build a career off you? And then those are the people that end up, clubbing together and hanging out together.
But I do think when it comes to like cults of personality, you do have people who straight up hate you and who are trying to like get like follow your coattail. But then I think like there's certain people who literally like worship your every word. But then I think there's some people who are kind of both, where it's like they're jealous, but they also want to be you. And I think that she could be in that spot because like she vibed to meet President Trump so hard, but now like she seeing what it is to be like, I guess, have some power. So she's like, I could possibly do those.
No, yeah, absolutely. And I think there was some talk too that like it's possible that Trump, if he runs again, might pick Marjorie Taylor Greene as his VP.
Oh my God! Can you imagine a Marjorie Taylor Greene vice president like him or how about this, a Trump Bobert? Or a Green Bobert.
I was gonna say, what if Green and Bobert ran together?
You see, the thing is, what's scary about that is the fact that people are like, we need a woman president. So, like you said, the right gets on to the left of the left, right? So they get women, they get the symbology, they get two women, but then we look past the historical fact about how like white women do historically, unfortunately. And this is not a diss, like this is just the fact, like to control the social like issues and as far as like being able to manipulate things from like, because their husbands are in power, so they're able to like get their husbands to do things that you generate. So 2 white women running on a ticket for America could be like potentially one of those most like 2 like fascists like that. That could potentially be very dangerous, and they could potentially, if that ever happened, which I pray that we're just joking, that could potentially be one of the like an actual like scary and serious moment. Like,
yeah, and then add Tulsi Gabbard in for Secretary of State.
Oh my God, which is I forget about her. These are the kind of people that are dangerous, like the people who are like weaselly and the people who give you over to the fascists, like that. And that's, I guess that's why I asked them that question, like the left, because a lot of the left seems like they're becoming nationalists in the sense of like. Yes. National socialism, as in like, yeah, they want to, they're anti-establishment, but they're still reactionary. So they're so that energy, instead of going to the left because we don't have any left, is going to the right. And then like eventually you'll just have like these anti-establishment like right factions that are pretty much still there's, it's socialist for white people, but for everybody else, yeah. Yeah. So like it'll be like a mini version of like of Europe, how everybody else is like only gonna be able to see it, where instead of like you get all your resources from like a third world country to prop up your economy, the third world country is right down the street propping up your economy.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's see what else is left for this 58-second clip.
This is like a nightmare. Like I woke up to these are 2 faces that I dread.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Couldn't go to the capital markets, couldn't lend money.
We should not be funding CCP companies. We should not. We should not be. We should stop doing business with an enemy that is trying to kill us and did kill us this past year.
And COVID bullshit. When we've had like the World Health Organization, tons of like top level scientists have come out and been like, yeah, that wasn't a Wuhan like thing. That was potentially that could have come out of Ukraine labs. We don't know. We're never going to be able to prove that. It's just like this. It's the same thing as the Spanish flu. We hate the Spanish in the beginning of the fucking 20th century, so we call it a flu that started in Kansas, the Spanish flu.
Yeah, and the only reason why we hated the Spanish at that point is because we saw them as competition for Cuba.
Exactly. And then what are we saying? And right now, we're seeing China as competition to the new world, because we've destroyed the world so much that another country has finally come up and is like, there's another way. Like you can keep your markets, but they got to be controlled, because because at a certain point these markets got a hand. So. It's just very funny that you can tell where it's coming from, but at the same time you can see Bannon, because I don't think Bannon fully agrees with that, because you can tell he's one of those people who like is anti-globalist, but they still are pretty much a globalist. It's like Trump, where they're like, we have to cut off all the money, and they're trying to build Trump hotels in the countries that he's like lambasting against.
Well, that's the thing. The Overton window is shifting so much to the right that you even have people like Steve Bannon being like, okay, maybe that's a little too far. I don't know, it's bad that it's getting that right, but it's getting to that point again. I feel like when we were reading like out of the Nazi Hitler's American model, and it's just like some of these laws are too racist for the Nazis. It's like, it's getting to that point again where it's like some of this shit's so bad that like even people on the right and some people in the far right who are Nazis are like, that's too much, man. And it's that's crazy. The fact that she can say that on TV, and that's where free speech gets you. This unabetted free speech. That was the legit hate speech. That literally should be censored. I'm not, because I don't know. I know there are people, even some people I listen to, who are free speech absolutists. And like free speech absolutism is such bullshit, because it's like, so I can get your medical records and just say them. I can take, like, there's so many things that you can just like poke holes in that. But then when it comes to things like hate speech, it should not be tolerated. I don't care if you believe in free speech or not. Hate speech is not free speech, because those ideas can spread so fast and like a wildfire. And then before you know it,
her one idea, you'll hear it repeated, and you will hear that. There's people across the nation who think that. There's people on the left who think China's
yeah.
So
I think making sure that hate speech is clearly defined and that it's abiding by that, so that bad actors like Twitter don't, like what Lee Camp was saying, right? Where he said Jew and Nazi, and they were like, hate speech, right? So that's where it goes the wrong way. However, there are definitely ways you can clearly state what hate speech is, right?
We should be being intolerant of intolerance.
Yes.
But we shouldn't be scared to like say a word or have a conversation. Now you understand like some words, like like the N word, like that you're not gonna be like just need to be saying that, like, but some words some things you have to be able to talk about because you won't have a conversation about it, and just censoring things don't make it go away. Now when it comes to things like hate speech, I feel that it needs to be censored just because the simple fact is when you talk about like this motherfucker's on YouTube. You just put it out of YouTube, right?
Mm-hmm. And
how many kids can come out of that? How many like children are going to see that and like get in your head, China's bad, blah 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 blah.
Right.
It's just, and how many old people? There's just so many susceptible to that message, and people need to understand how viral an idea can go, and when it's a hateful idea, it should be put down as soon as possible, in my opinion, because you don't want things spreading like a wildfire before it becomes a problem.
Yeah. No, for sure. I'm trying to see. Yeah, so I guess this is from the War Room Pandemic, Real America's Voice, and I guess that's
all of that sounds like a red flag.
Oh yeah, I mean,
every word you just said was a red flag.
Like, yeah.
The America War Room. It's like, what? Why?
I guess that's what Steve Bannon's doing now.
I need people to understand though that we have over 720 military bases around the world, and the Chinese Communist Party has one.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, there are issues in China, but you cannot. I don't think anyone is in a position, especially America, to call China imperialist. Like old China, yes, but new China is not being imperial. Like you can't be like the China has a debt trap for these African countries after you've put the world in debt, and then China's clearing the debt for these countries. They literally just cleared the debt for these countries. There's so many things. We're not saying, and people aren't saying that China doesn't have ulterior motives. Everybody who does anything wants, like, you're not going to just be nice.
I mean, they're a big ass country. They're so easy to get corrupted as well, right? Like,
exactly. And people act like. It's just so funny that we conflate our Americanism with every country that does something. Like we always have to project Americanism on any other country that does something. And it's funny that everything that she was saying is what we're doing. Every time. Like it never fails. It's like they're killing people. They're trying to take over the world. It's like it is the cognitive the leaps that you have to do. I don't even know. But yeah, we'll get back to that again because we know that's not going to be the last that we're hearing from her.
Oh no!
Oh no! Unfortunately, but yeah,
I just hope she at least stays where she's at and doesn't get any more power.
Exactly. I need her in the first district in Georgia, like just because I had to. I was looking up. Cynthia McKinney, who she was I'm going to try to get her on here. She was on Savvy's show a couple weeks ago, but Cynthia McKinney was the nominee for the Green Party in 2008, the presidential nominee. She also was a three-time incumbent for the Democratic Party, but she defected because she saw how bullshit it was and she decided to leave. So she also she's the author of How America Makes Shithole Countries. So I want to get her on here.
That sounds fun.
Yeah. So, but I guess that's it for the day. And
so
thanks for everybody who's tuning in or will be tuning in later. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. We should be back on, I guess, on Sunday or Monday, depending on what's going on and how much news comes out in the next couple days. But keep tuning in to PVN. We're trying to keep that content just flowing to y'all, and hopefully. I'm starting if y'all haven't checked it out, I finally released my Revolutionary Reader video like about last week, and I'm going to be starting on a new paper soon, inspired by people like Marjorie Taylor Greene about fascism. So, and fascism in the 21st century. So I'll be starting on that soon.
All right, everybody. I'm sorry, what were you gonna say?
I was going to say, what you got coming up?
Yeah, so check us out. Check us out on Thursdays. We'll have the new left episode probably at 8 p.m. And catch
We'll
me
be
on.
having actually next week. We'll be having Alex Fattal on for the author of The End of Policing, which should be very interesting, especially since we've had this Trump thing go on, and he's been actually very adamant lately online about. He's been talking about that a lot. So I want to talk to him about that, and along with defunding police, Noli's going to be joining us as well. So Thursday night, well, it's going to be fun. I'll be on there. I'll definitely be on that episode.
Yeah, for sure. We'll see. I might try and get on there, but we'll see. We'll see what is going on over there.
So we'll probably go ahead and we'll probably go with Propaganda Part 3.
I think so.
They
keep giving us materials, so yeah.
It's like I don't think Propaganda is going anywhere anytime soon, so we'll be using that. But everybody, I hope you all have a base day and have a good weekend.
Take care, all.